Hey, what's going on guys? Nick from Soho Motorsports. This is the car and build that everybody has been waiting for. This is Carl's twin top mount 370Z.
Jar with the fabrication department at Soho Motorsports.
So Jar, tell us a little bit about this setup. I mean, it is Carl's twin top mount 370Z that put down some pretty amazing power, so talk to us about it.
So everything in this kit is custom made. I think the only thing that we offer on our website is just a crash bar. So we have our intercooler custom made as well for this kit with the blow valves on the top of the intercooler. Resolves the issue having a fitment, stuff like that, better circulation. On this kit, we do have everything symmetrical, from the intake pipes to all the cold side piping, to mirror the turbos because it's a twin turbo top mount kit. On this kit, we have the wastegates on the top. So I pretty much designed it to where they recirculate to the downpipe. Allows for faster recirculation of the wastegates, more room on the engine bay compartment. On this kit, we also have the dual intake setups mirrored as well. And it has our cash can, which has the coolant to oil cash can setup with our power steering, all custom made as well. It has a bunch of custom parts in the car.
Yeah, and I can tell, I mean, the G3770s, I mean, those are not small turbos, so being able to fit them in there and then get it to where it's actually mirrored and symmetrical is a pretty big task to accomplish, and you guys were able to do it down there in the fabrication department, which is obviously kudos to you guys. And so, like Jar said, I mean, we had custom electrical harness, we had custom AC lines, there was a lot of custom pieces that were made, there were custom fittings that were welding on there for the cooling system. So I mean, a lot of stuff went into this build. It's not just your standard build. This is something that we have a lot of time into it. Everybody does.
Yeah.
So and you can see, I mean, the time that we put into it shows because it's a masterpiece. And in my opinion, everybody that sees it, you pop the hood and you're just like, wow, this is interesting. This is actually really cool. Everybody that's seen it. So also to touch on the we did the forward-facing manifolds as well too that we built in-house too, correct?
Correct. So that's where the difficulty comes in this kit. A lot of the turbo kits, when it comes to twin turbo setups, you use flex joints and stuff like that. So this kit is all hard mounted. So it actually moves with the engine. It comes with our Soho manifolds front facing, and it's Schedule 10 material. It's dual welded on both sides. And that's how I was able to actually put the wastegates on the top of the turbo without any flex joints. So it's all one whole piece together.
So everything moves with the motor. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. So and we'll talk with the other guys that are involved with this build. We'll talk with Justin. We'll talk with Dylan. Dylan was in charge of building the motor. Justin was in charge of electrical and the AC system. I'm in charge of tuning. I'll talk about that, and then we'll go from there. So what's going on, guys? We're back here. We're with Dylan, and he's going to talk about the motor build and everything that went into making this monster of a build.
How's it going, guys? Dylan at Soho Motorsports here. Built the engine in this one. This was a cool engine to build. He wanted some pretty particular parts in this engine. This engine is one of our Stage 2 HB VHR engines. This one is actually stock cams, but it's full race ported, port and polish heads. Interestingly enough, this client, he also wanted particularly a Bryant Racing billet crankshaft in this engine. Partially because of the durability of the billet material, and also because of the built-in slightly extra clearance availability with the billet crankshafts, causing a little bit more wiggle room for the oscillation with the heavy bangs that this thing produces under high timing and boost pressures. So this was a real fun one. Runs great, and I mean, it was a really cool engine to build, super clean. He got all the right parts.
So what compression is in this and all that? And
so
what fuel?
This engine is standard, what we generally use with our Stage 2 HB engines. It's a 12-to-1 custom Wiseco Soho pistons with a HB head gasket, dropping the compression slightly, so it ends up being just barely over 11-to-1 compression. This specific car is run solely on Ignite E90 fuel with water methanol injection boost juice.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and that's why it's able to put down multiple 1,000 wheel horsepower pulls. I mean, you've seen it. We did 6, 7. I don't even know how many at this point. It's just a number of them, and they just keep. It just keeps putting it every single time, right? Yeah. So it's just consistent.
Just back-to-back 1,000+.
And so, I mean, this thing has done very, very well. We haven't had any issues in regards to lifting the heads or anything like that. So it's done great. So I mean, this motor has been put through the paces. We've gone through ride-alongs with Justin, and you'll see that later on in the video. This thing is absolutely terrifying at 100+ wheels, so I can't even imagine at 1,000. I mean, you could probably tell us because you're driving Nismo, so it's probably one of those where it's like, okay, this is a lot of power.
Yeah, it's driving a car with this much power when it actually puts it down is a pretty frightening thing. Definitely, it gives you some eye wiggles when it actually puts the power to the ground.
Yeah, and you got to pay attention, right? Because you can't just. This is one of these cars that will definitely hurt you if you don't pay attention.
Yeah, if you're not careful driving something like this, it'll definitely put you in some pretty precarious situations.
There you go. You heard it from the man himself. So next up, we'll talk to Justin. Like I said, he did a lot of the electrical components and the AC stuff. So we'll talk to him next. All right, we're back. Everybody knows Justin. We do all the ride-alongs. So he's going to tell his side of the build, and so I'll let him tell his story.
So we've got Dylan that built an absolute monster of an HP. And then you've also heard from Jar that did his thing with the turbo kit. And so one of the things that I can reiterate on the turbo kit is the fact that every single part on this vehicle, aside from the crash bar, is 100% custom to this setup. The fuel system is 100% custom to this setup. It features dual 525 liter per hour pumps, also has 1700 cc injectors, and it has 24 gallons per minute, I believe, of boost juice. Yeah. On top of everything for water meth injection to keep things cool. It has the mass airflow custom mounted underneath the passenger headlight to keep it out of the engine bay out of temps. You know, like Jar said, everything's mirrored, it's recirculated. So when you first fire it up, you drive it down the road, it's very unassuming because it's kind of quiet, which is really surprising for something that makes well into 4 digits with a horsepower. So, you know, like they said, everything's custom. The wiring harness had to get routed a certain way to keep it away from heat, so the entire wiring harness at the front of the engine is completely different. The routing of the mass airflow setup's different. The fuel setup routing is completely different from our standard setup. The wastegates being up top, front and center here, we actually did AN lines on everything on this vehicle, so it's 100% AN line. I think everything but the radiator hoses are AN. With the turbocharger going on that bank, that's generally where we put our power steering reservoir for the single turbo top mount, because, you know, generally they end up here with a G35 900, but this is, you know, G30 770s. So the reservoir ended up here, so then the upper radiator hose and the power steering reservoir and the return stuff had to do the little bit of dance to get everything in there. I mean, I have put this car together and taken it apart so many times, I can probably do it in my sleep at this point, but there is a very specific order everything has to go together in order to make it all actually fit and mesh together. One of the main concerns we were worried about was heat management, because the amount of heat you have in the engine bay, all the hot side components that are in here. So we did add a set of track spec vents, which I'll tell you, like, when you get back from driving the car, even under just normal driving and stuff, you can actually see the heat waves coming off the hood. It's significant. Oh, yeah. Something else we did to alleviate the problem there is the entire hot side, every single component all the way back to the exhaust is Cerakoted. It has the Black Cobra Cerakote, so not only is the finish beautiful, but it really does work keeping the heat inside the exhaust where you want it. So, I mean, you've seen from the driving videos. So, I mean, generally putting a turbo kit, a supercharger kit in this car is 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bucket ordeal. This is about 50 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bucket.
If not more, right?
So, I mean, you know, the cooling system. So the G-Series chargers, they're water cooled and they're oil cooled. I tell you, like, by far one of the most complicated setups I've ever built AN lines for. Just the turbo lines on this car took, I believe, 8 hours of design, actually building, install, and then everything is also fire sleeved, again, just for heat management purposes. We were very, very concerned about heat management with this car. And then on top of all that, the client wanted cruise control, got cruise control. He also wanted air conditioning, got air conditioning. So you can't see it in the video, but the AC line usually goes here, and one of the AC lines is 3 pieces. Well, that AC line from the firewall, because of how it had to be designed and routed, is 1 piece from the firewall all the way down to the condenser, one piece. So I mean, just stuff like that, where it's like, you know, I was the one who pitched the idea at first about doing a twin top mount kit, because I thought it'd be really cool to make this kind of power in a car, but have it be factory body, because all the panels are stock. minus the hood vents. But boy, I ate my words quick when we started putting this thing together. So yeah, it really turned into something. But man, with clients like him and with the team that we got here, you know, we put this car together, we put it on the ground, and it does 1,000 horsepower, no sweat. At 800 horsepower on cold tires, the car did some really wild stuff. It's very smooth, but it's one of the most violent cars I've ever been in my entire life. So don't let the 800 number fool you, because these G-Series chargers, when they come online, you're going for a ride.
All right,
ready?
so we're in Carl's, yep, map 2. Let's go for it. Holy Woo! Okay. I was terrified of this car, like we said before we got in. I'm still terrified, but got a little bit out of the system. Holy shit.
There are 2 cars I've ever driven at Soho that made me nervous. This is number 2.
Goodness. Holy.
So just for a little bit of clarity here, every single map on this car goes up 100 horsepower except for map 3 to 4, which goes up 200 horsepower. Right now we're on map 2, so we're at about 8. So
good thing we have both lanes.
yeah. Yeah, you don't do pulls in Mexico in this car without making sure traffic is completely clear.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is a handful, man.
Oh my God. But the crazy thing, like I was saying, man, it's not, some of these turbo cars you can, wow, it's crazy. This one is just, it just comes in, it almost feels like a supercharger.
It comes in smooth, but the difference between this one and other cars is it pulls harder and harder and harder the higher
pulling.
you go in the power band.
Yeah, it just
So
keeps pulling.
I use this word a lot because it's good for predictability and, you know, making sure your car stays between the mayo and the mustard, but the linear power in this thing is just, it's unreal, and it pulls until you get out of it. Like, it pulls harder and harder and harder until you get out of the throttle. So what a monster. Like I said, this car has 4 maps. We're in map 2 right now, and it just gave both of us a ride.
This car is nuts. I mean, and even from like a tuning standpoint, this was probably one of the most difficult cars I've had to deal with, just because there's a lot and everything happens so fast.
Yep.
I mean, the pulls are so quick. It's like if you don't have something right or have any safety features in the EcuTech software, something could go wrong very quickly. So we incorporated all those safety features, air fuel safety feature. I mean, you got boost cut. I mean, this thing at times wanted to do 36, 37 pounds, right?
Right,
So
yep.
we had to make sure everything was in its proper allocation to make sure that we didn't have any issues with it. And like Justin said, this car has done multiple 1,000 horsepower pulls on the dyno. We've taken it for many miles on the road.
Yep.
And like you said, you drive it, you wouldn't even know. You're just cruising. As soon as you get it, like a bat out of hell, it's gone. So, you'll see that.
It did 1,030 to 1,060 horsepower pulls, and that's at the tire. So, you know, like Nick was saying with the tuning and stuff, so we're actually this is one of the highest torque engines we've ever made. Even the Nismo doesn't make this amount of torque because of the size of the charger and how the package is spec'd and everything. Right. So one of the things that we found was the fuel system was actually not up to snuff. We had I believe it was a 525 and a 450 in it before. Correct. And you know, for context, one 525 will generally do 700, 750 on E. So we have 2 525s in this car now. So that's 1,050 liters per hour of fuel, plus 1,700 cc injectors, plus the methanol on top of that. And then we also upgraded all the factory feed lines, and everything's -8 AN now to get the volume up.
Correct.
So that way we wouldn't have any fuel issues, because it wasn't getting lean to the point where we were worried about the engine being safe, but it does load the engine up more once you're on the road.
Correct.
So just to make sure we had that extra, you know, generally on a fuel system, you want to build in that cushion, that 30-40% cushion. So upgrading everything past that point really gave it the cushion that we needed to make sure the car would not only make 1,000 horsepower, but do it a lot of times without having any issues.
And correct. And to touch on that, I mean, a lot of times we'll use the water methanol as an extra source of fuel. But in this situation, we just ran out of fuel. So a lot of the cars that we build, the big power cars, even with E90, we still use the water methanol for NOx suppression to lower intake air temperature. Right. So it's something that is definitely needed when you're doing big power. A lot of people think, well, I got to run water methanol because I have 93. That's not the case. I mean, every big power car we've done that makes power and has lasted a very long time has water methanol.
And see, a lot of people have the misconception also that water methanol is like nitrous, where you really have to fill it up every time you go out.
Right.
So we've done 25,000 horsepower pulls, plus actually had the vehicle on the road for about 30 miles at this point, and it's only used about a quarter of the tank that's in the trunk of water meth.
Right.
And it's a gallon and a half, 2 gallons. So it really, when it comes to water meth, the numbers sound crazy and it sounds like it's going to use a lot. And oh man, I'm going to be filling this thing up every single time I go out, but it's really not like that. It's very, you know, low maintenance when it comes to that. And then boost juice is really not that expensive either. I think it's like 17, 18 bucks a gallon.
It's not that
right now.
expensive.
So it's, you know, it's really good insurance to make sure your investment stays alive for a long time. You know, like I'm sure everybody who's watching this video is familiar with David's car. So David's car has a single nozzle because it is a DE intake with one throttle body. It has a 25 gallon per hour nozzle in it. This one has twin 12 gallon per hour nozzles in it on each side. So it's got about the same amount. You know, that car did 1,180 horsepower. So it really is the difference between these cars staying alive and being able to use a fuel that's not something where you have to do super high maintenance. The Ignite's such a good fuel. It's good, stable, it's reliable. You know, and this car is also on flex, so if the owner wants to go to an E85 station, he can do that. Everything will self-adjust. So I mean, that's really like user friendliness. He can go in there and put 93 in it, make a ton of power, turn the maps down, or you can go ahead and put your E85 in it, or order a barrel of E90 and put your E90 in it, go out and really hurt some feelings. So I mean,
I would say this is probably the ultimate street car, right?
Man,
we're close.
It's up there.
Yeah,
this thing is up there. So I mean, as far as power goes, it's about as high as you want to go in this chassis in a street vehicle, just because of how, like I said, there's really no other word to describe it. It's violent. Yeah, it really is violent. And we hit, because of the temperature here. So the temperature, it's about 30 degrees outside right now, so the roads are cold. This thing's on a 300 series Mickey Thompson tire, and it's still top of third, top of fourth gear. If you let it eat, it'll just blow the tires off. So I mean, what a beast. We built something wild, and we're excited to share it with you.
In conclusion, we want to thank Carl for giving us the opportunity to build such a monster. I mean, this thing is nuts. I mean, it exceeded all of our expectations in this car. So thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. Hit the subscribe button below, and we'll catch you on the next one.